Oh hey guys, CPT Mechanic here, and today I'm going to show you how to rebuild the proportioning valve on a Ford Bantam Rocam. Let's get cracking! Right, so a couple of days ago I was driving down the road and the brake pedal felt very spongy. Went nearly all the way to the floor and the bucky pulled violently left under braking. It should brake in a straight line, so it could be a sticking caliper or it could be something a bit more sinister. Let's investigate. So the valve is located on the backside of the bucky towards the right hand side of the wheel. So if you want a bit more space at the back, jack up your bucky, put it on axle stands, and that's the proportioning valve. That's the seal that failed internally. It leaked out from the side, ran all the way down the arm, and dripped onto the axle. That's where I knew the failure happened. And that's the arm connecting the valve to the axle itself. Right. So to remove the proportioning valve, there are two brake lines going from the front of the bucky into the valve itself. And there are another two brake lines exiting the valve going to the back wheels of the bucky. These are connected with unions, the two unions over there, running down the two flexi hoses and distributing to the left and right wheels respectively. There's your brake fluid traveling and it's connected to the arm with a nut hooked onto the axle. So once you remove it, it should drop off. And to remove the valve from the body itself, there are two bolts holding it in. Once you remove those two bolts, sorry, the valve will drop out. And here is the proportioning valve removed. As you can see, there are two brake lines coming from the front of the bucky and two brake lines going to the back. And it's a good idea to have a bucket to catch all the brake fluid that will drop out. And here is the valve on my workbench. The purpose of the valve is to balance the brake pressure between the front and rear wheels, restricting brake force during hard braking to prevent rear-wheel lockup or skidding. So it's more for stability. It came from the factory and it's a good idea to have it in to rebuild it. Some guys do install compression fittings, but that's a bad idea. It's meant for plumbing, not for brake lines. The better way to do it is to install unions for brake lines, and this seal cost about 180 bucks aftermarket. You can get it from Ford, but it would be a bit more expensive. And these are the seals removed from the packaging. One big dust shield, two small O-rings, two medium and two large O-rings. Okay, so let's remove the arm from the valve. So with a screwdriver and a hammer, let's knock out the pin. And with a hook side of the hammer, let's take the pin out. It can be a bit crusty, so some penetrating fluid could help. It could go a long way. That's the pin removed, and let's pop off the arm. And you can already see the brake fluid that has leaked out. So let's pop off the dust cover on the outside. It's a bit worn, as you can see. I mean, it's very old, from 2006. And there is the brake fluid that leaked out. Very gritty, lots of sediment inside. So something obviously fell internally. There shouldn't be liquid running out of the top or out the backside. Let's clean it with a cloth to get majority of the grit and brake fluid out. Cool, so let's hit it with some brake cleaner to loosen up some of the grit and wipe it again with a cloth. Let's throw out as much of the grit as possible, cleaning thoroughly as much as possible, and using a pick as well to get the remaining grit that I couldn't get out with a cloth. Let's use a pick or a flat blade screwdriver. Cool, so let's hit the bolts with some penetrating fluid. It will help remove the bolts as they can be very stuck and stubborn in place. And using a Allen key, crack open the two bolts. Okay, they are very loose at this point, so it can be removed by hand. And there we go. First bolt is coming out. There is a seal in place, so it sort of acts like a bolt slash pin, putting pressure on the arm when the arm rotates, compresses and decompresses. And that's the second bolt with the pin coming out. These seals still look to be intact as it wasn't leaking from this side, but obviously it came with a kit, so it's a no-brainer to replace them. It would be stupid to leave them in. And let's pop the pins out. So just using a screwdriver, pushing one through and pushing the other side through. And here are the two pins. Each pin has two O-rings and they are very, very flat, which was causing the leak. Brake fluid was just pouring through. So those are the culprits. Cool, so let's hit it with some more brake cleaner. You can never use too much brake cleaner. The surface internally has to be spick and span. Otherwise, grit will cause damage. It might not leak in a day, it might not leak in a week or in a month, but over time it will cause issues again if there is grit left over in the system. So use as much brake cleaner as you dare. So clean the surface thoroughly. I'm just zipping through it as it's very repetitive. Look, you're not building microchips here, but to clean as much of it as possible with the human eye. So brake clean and a rag is your friend. Using a soft bristle brush as well, just to agitate the surface where the pick and the cloth couldn't get to. Give it a thorough brush and some more brake cleaner. You can see the grit and the black liquid coming out of there. That's all things you don't want inside your brake lines or your brake system. It's just going to cause problems. So hit it with some more brake cleaner. And there we go. So let's give the pin a quick sand. It's not that important, but it'll just help with installation again. Just a quick sand and some brake cleaner. Dunk it in a bit and wipe it with the cloth just to get it a bit more clean than what it was. There we go. That's perfectly acceptable. Okay, so let's take these seals off the allen-headed bolts slash pins. So using my pick, my curved pick, let's remove the first seal. Okay, that's the first seal off. And let's remove the second seal. So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if you have a small screwdriver or a pick, it'll work perfectly fine. There's the two seals off. And let's take off the next two seals from the first pin or first rod, whatever you prefer to call it. I'm not sure of the technical name. These seals were a bit of a pain to get off as they were very flat and hard. Let's just roll off the seal from the pin. I just ended up breaking the seal off entirely as it was so hard and brittle. It didn't even want to pull off. So I just broke it off. It didn't damage the surface where the seal should be seated, but as long as the seal comes off, that's the most important thing, to get the old seal off. And that's the first one. And the second one I did off camera. It was an even more nightmare than the first. Okay, so let's hit some brake cleaner and use a cloth to clean it and wipe it down. Give it a good wipe. You don't want any grit stuck in there. And guys, as you can see, it's a very easy, straightforward job. You just need some basic hand tools. And to clean the Allen-headed bolt as well, bolt slash rod, whatever you prefer to call it. And give it a wipe as well. Get all the grit off there as much as you possibly can. So it's a lot of cleaning. It's a lot of cleaning, spraying, wiping, cleaning, spraying, wiping, brushing. That's the bulk of the job. Okay, so I've placed the pistons with the old seals in the center and the new seals on the outside. So let's take the old seals away. And just dipping my hand in some brake clean to lubricate the seals. I know I should have used brake fluid instead of brake cleaner to lubricate the seals. Don't do what I do, but I had to do it in a pinch. I did not have brake cleaner with me at the time. Brake fluid, sorry, at the time with me. So it is what it is. Just don't do what I do. Do it the correct way. I hope the car gods do not punish me in future for this. But we move on. So the new seals are going on with the help of some brake cleaner, not brake fluid as it should have been. It's a very, very tight fit. And hey guys, if you're liking these videos, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share to see some more Rocam related or any vehicle repairs in future. Thanks for watching. Yeah, so these seals are going on very, very tight. The lubricant would help. Don't ever put your O-rings or seals on dry. If you want to struggle, do it that way, but try to lubricate them. Cool. So let's give it a bit more lubrication and let's put the pistons into the valve body. So the first one is already in, the second one is going in. Don't have to push it too deep, otherwise it might go right through the body. So just until it seats nicely. And that's the pistons in on both sides. Okay, so let's put these seals on the Allen headed pins. And as you can see, the older vehicles, or most vehicles, usually use a .3 or .4 glycol based brake fluid. .5.1 can be used. .5 is more for race cars and silicone based, so try to stay away from that. But .3 or .4 is perfectly fine for most vehicle usage, most urban street usage. Cool. So the O-rings are on the Allen headed pins. Let's lubricate the seals once more and let's put them in the valve body. So once the Allen headed pins are tight, it will sort of push the pistons and seat them as far as they should be or in the correct position. Hence why I said earlier, you don't need to push the pistons too deep in the valve body. These alienated pins will center them and will push them to the where they need to be. So let's first give them a hand tighten just to make sure they are going in properly and the threads do not strip. And let's tighten it with a ratchet. So out of interest sake, I googled the prices of a new proportioning valve aftermarket and it costs about 1,500 rand on average. On average, if you go to Ford, even more than that. So you can pay 1,500 or you can pay less than 200 bucks for a rebuild kit, seal kit. You decide what you want to do. I prefer the rebuild kit, but that's just me. That's my preference. As I said earlier, some people do use unions, but it's not preferred. The bucket came with a proportioning valve, and I'm going to keep it that way. Anyway, I put some red rubber grease on the dust shield just to lubricate it a bit to make sure it slides on the valve body a bit easier. And the dust shield is going on. It's fighting me a bit, but it goes on eventually. And there we go. He's seated. Cool. So let's move on. Let's clean the arm. The arm still had some residual old brake fluid and grit. So I hit it with some brake cleaner and gave it a quick brush just to dislodge any of the old debris and old fluid. Just giving it a quick brush and then using the rag. The rag and the brake cleaner has been my saving grace for this rebuild. If you want to do this, I'd suggest you get a couple of rags and a can of brake cleaner. If you don't use brake cleaner, you are going to struggle. So giving the arm a nice wipe, making sure it's clean. It doesn't have to be super clean. This is just for exterior, or just for aesthetics, should I say. Just giving it a quick wipe to get as much off as possible. Okay, so let's finish this job. Attach the arm to the proportioning valve, line up the holes, and slot the pin in. So you can't get this wrong way around. It only goes in one way. So slot the pin into the hole and send it home with a hammer. And your job is basically done. So all you have to do now is reconnect the valve to the body, reconnect the brake lines, put some more fluid in the reservoir and bleed the system from back to front. Always starting from the rear and working your way to the front. If you don't do it, you will have spongy brakes and air in your lines and you will have braking issues and you don't want that. That's very dangerous. And afterwards, check for any leaks at the proportioning valve or any of the brake lines where it connected. Check for leaks and tighten up if necessary. If there is a leak on the valve, you know you made an error somewhere. And there we go, job done, guys. Mine has been in now for about 4 months and still going strong. So good luck, cheers, and enjoy.